Awesome. What's up? It's Paul from Guitar World, and I'm here with Neil Osberg from Sound City Amplification. And what you just heard was the powerfully sweet Master Lead 50 from Sound City Amplification, head and cabinet. And I have Neil here to tell me a lot about this particular amp. So tell me, Neil, what was the genesis of this particular, the Sound City name, of course, and the amplifier itself?
Yeah, so Sound City was a brand that was started in the mid-'60s in England. It was Ivor Arbiter of Dallas Arbiter fame. They had a music store in London called Sound City, and they had this idea that they would make gear that could outfit a whole band. And they commissioned Dave Reeves, who later on went on to form Hiwatt, to design and build their first group of amps, the Sound City 100. And this amplifier is an evolution of that model.
So Sound City is a precursor to Hiwatt amplification, and you've sort of come in and sort of resurrected the brand. How did you go about doing so?
So my partner Steve Fryette is a longtime Hiwatt freak. He played Hiwatts when he played in the Dickies, and we spent a lot of time discussing how we were going to evolve this amp, and he took the Dave Reeves power amp section topology and just brought it forward so that instead of having to turn the amp on 10 to get power amp saturation, it starts to build, you start to feel it as you approach 10 or 11 o'clock on the master. So it's just more manageable for these times, with better PA systems and pedal boards and all of that.
Yeah. Well, it's like I was saying, considering that this is sort of built on the Hiwatt platform, as someone who's played Hiwatts before, I know it takes forever to get any sort of, crunch or a bit of, distortion. I mean, and even if you crank it all the way up, sometimes you don't even get that. It's just a very loud, clean, kind of ice-picky sound. But here, with this new Sound City Master Lead 50, you've managed to take the brilliant and normal channels, and in conjunction with the master, you've been able to get that crunch rather quickly by using the master. So it's kind of almost counterintuitive that you would think to turn up the brilliance channel or the normal and then start moving the master. This is the other way around. It's sort of like you kind of move the brilliant just a little bit in the sweet spots, and then as you turn the master from 10 to 2, that's when the magic happens, a lot of crunch. Am I correct here?
Exactly. So you set the voicing depending on what type of guitar you have, and there's a simple diagram that we provide you. So for like a humbucker guitar, you plug into the bottom normal input. The bottom inputs are the high sensitivity inputs, and then you set the voicing between the normal and the brilliant channel. And so for humbucker guitars, pushing the normal volume kind of brings the bottom and the sparkly top up. Mm-hmm. And then single coil guitar, you kind of do the opposite, where you push the brilliant channel volume, and that fills in the mids more, and you get a lot of gain. And then so you just set up the voicing first, and then you adjust the master for the amount of saturation that you want, which is kind of the opposite of what a lot of people do with amps that don't have the ability to really saturate the way this does.
So what's interesting to note, of course, is you have the channels jumped, and on the bottom is the high input channels, and on the top, of course, is the low input. So as you said, you're starting with the normal channel, and by using, say, a humbucker equipped guitar, this is where you would kind of set your normal and brilliant volumes, because you're getting more of that bottom end, and then start using the master between 10 and 2 to get that sweet kind of crunch. And if we're talking about, if I'm using, say, a single coil guitar, I would just back the normal and pull up the brilliant sort of in this V section, correct?
Right,
and
exactly.
That's where you sort of get that sweet spot. And it's interesting that you put up the high input channels on the bottom as opposed to what so many people are used to having it on the top. So everything about the amp seems to be the inverse of what we are normally used to, right?
That is a little bit true. And part of that is we're holding on to some traditions, and because the old ones had the high sensitivity inputs on the bottom. But what is kind of a new thing is, instead of the master being at the end of the row, we've grouped all the volumes together. So you know that this is where you start. And then you can do the equalization and after that, because this is really that's the magic. And it's also designed, the power amp is designed that this amp happily runs at 3/4 of the way up to all the way up. You can run it at a gig with the master cranked without worrying about anything. It uses Mullard EL34 tubes. Dave Reeves had originally worked at the Mullard factory in England, and these are the reissues that are made by Electro Harmonics, and they're just great. The 100-watt version of this amp is the same amp. It just has a bigger output transformer and 4 EL34s.
Right. So Neil, let's talk about a little bit about how you guys voice the EQ section now. Normally a guy like me, when I see a normal and brilliant volumes, I tend to think of the normal as sort of more of the low-end channel, and the brilliant is more of a top-end channel, where in this case, the normal is still somewhat of the low end, but it also has a bit of a little bit more of a sparkle to it, and the brilliant really emphasizes the mid-range. So really, where you start to sculpt your sound is with the EQ section. So am I correct in that?
Correct. Yeah. So the normal channel gives you that beautiful bottom end and the sparkle on top, and when you push the brilliant, it really starts to push the mid-range and thicken up the mid-range, so that's why it's great to push that for a Strat type guitar. The EQ section is very interactive. It's not like a wildly active circuit, and the presence control is very smooth, and you could easily run it up to 1/2 to 3/4, and it doesn't get too brittle or spiky.
Let's hear like just the normal channel as you start to turn it up as we're by bringing the master down, right? And then we'll move over to the brilliant. So you really could get to hear what we're talking about, like the idea of like the low end and sparkle. That's cool. That normal channel is really clear and defined, and of course, when cranking it up, it just sounds great. And you definitely hear the mid-range on that brilliant channel. So I'd love to actually hear that on, let's try that with a single coil guitar like this Telly over here. So what we just heard when I was playing, we swapped how we jumped the channels. So now I'm in the brilliant high input, and of course we're jumping the normal high into the brilliant, and we pushed more of the mids on the brilliant. So this was more brilliant mid focus, and you heard how much this amp really naturally breaks up to like this really sweet kind of gain. Now let's hear a bit of what this sounds like on more of the cleaner, prettier settings, right? And so what we did is backed off a little bit on the master and moved normal and brilliant a little less than halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a listen. That's gorgeous. That's really, really gorgeous. Tell me a little bit about the speakers that you're using now to really achieve that, because these speakers are definitely not harsh. They're far more have a lot more like high fidelity elements to them, right? What have you been using?
All Sound City cabinets use Fane speakers from the UK. They're sent by boat from England, and they're specially made just for us. We developed the speakers with Fane, and the Fanes were in the original Sound City amps. And this cabinet also has the Steve Fryette V-brace design, and there's a slot on the back similar to the old Sound City cabinets. So it's a little bit more enveloping. It's not as beamy. They sound really great, very articulate without that kind of fizzy high end that some cabinets can sound like. Everything is made in the US. The cabinetry is made in the US. The plexi panels are made in Michigan. The transformers are made in the US. They're built by us in Southern California.
Well, it sounds fantastic, and I think what you got going here is really great because it kind of embraces a little bit of the vintage, a little more modern tones, and you can, and of course the application to use it, whether you're using pedals or just plugging straight in, you know, you really got a great sounding head and cabinet over here.
Thank you. Yeah, there's one final point about the pedal boards is that because you're getting the saturation from the power amp section, pedal boards with ambient effects sound really good into this amp. And also a boost pedal is just incredible. So they work great with fuzzes. So there's a lot of bands like Converge and Candiria that are using these amps with various types of overdrive and fuzz pedals, and it works great for them, and they use them on tours.
Well, it's a great sounding amp, and Neil, thank you for coming here and showing me this brand new amp. Maybe next time we'll have to listen to the Master Lead 100 as well.
That's right. We'll see if we can really get the neighbors upset.
Blow the doors off. All right. Well, for more information, definitely check out Sound City Amplification, and thanks for coming by.
Thanks.